Hello and welcome back to a standard video with Austin Collins. Today I'm playing blue-white control. So this is a deck that I haven't really seen a lot of people talking about, but I think could have some very powerful legs moving into the new format. It's gotten some very powerful cards, some pretty just strict upgrades like negate, moving into something like Dovin's Veto, or like I think Seal Away is a little bit worse than Gideon's Triumph, so you have some very powerful upgrades there. Mostly because you get to play with cards like Gideon Blackblade, which provide you with a very fast threat that the deck was previously lacking. There just wasn't really like an efficient threat to play, like Torrential Gearhulk, which is what really made a deck like this super powerful. I think Gideon is near its level. They're not really the same kind of card, but they both do a really strong job of just getting your opponent dead, which I think is very important in a control deck like this. So why do I want to be playing this deck over like Esper? Well, I think the problem with Esper is that its mana base is pretty bad. You take a lot of damage off of it. Sometimes you just have all tap lands, and it doesn't really line up that well. So I'm choosing to play straight blue-white, to play powerful lands like Filterune and Blast Zone, while also having like a pretty strong land base that I don't really get punished by at all, if ever. So versus the other aggressive decks in the format, it gives me an advantage there over Esper because I don't have to be taking a bunch of damage off my lands. While this deck does have a harder game one dealing with harder time game one dealing with Experimental Frenzy compared to Esper, I think it's still more favored in the matchup because you have cards like Settle the Wreckage and Cleansing Nova, which typically line up pretty well versus the deck. So why am I playing like Sinister Sabotage over Absorb? Well, with the colorless lands in my deck being Blast Zone and Filterune, I need to be able to cast my counterspell on turn 3 consistently. So I can't really do that all the time with Absorb and colorless lands, so I just need to make sure that I'm playing blue and a 1, so my Filterune and my Blast Zone can help me cast it on the third turn of the game. I think the deck also got some very powerful sideboard cards in the form of the Wonder, Teferi Time Raveler, and also Narset Parter Veils, which I'm playing one of in the main deck. So those cards all do a very excellent job in the matchups that you want it. Versus the grindy decks, the Wonder is amazing, being able to exile like Rekindling Phoenix or Nicol Bolas on the 4th turn of the game is very powerful. It also just gets to get rid of 2 of those threats, so your opponent is forced to answer it with hopefully like a Vraska's Contempt after you deal with their early threat with something like a Prison Realm or a Gideon's Triumph or an Essence Scatter, or like a Shock or Lightning Strike, which isn't fantastic. I also think the deck lines up pretty well versus Nexus compared to what it used to, and compared to Esper, because you do have an early threat in the form of Gideon Blackblade. I think for Esper, the Nexus matchup is pretty bad. I mean, I don't think it's fantastic for us either, but I do think we have a better matchup than Esper, especially like looking at our post-board matchup. We get to board in like Narset, Invoke the Divine, Disdainful Stroke, Dovin's Veto, just all of these cards, and History Benalia, Teferi Time Raveler. We just get such a fast threat and have so much disruption that I think the matchup is significantly better post-board than what the other decks have compared to us. Yeah, I really think something like this will do well at the Open this weekend, so I'll most likely be playing it. If I make any changes, I'll most likely post it on my article, or the team's article rather, the What We'd Play. You guys should check that out if you haven't, but it's really cool. So let's dive right into the games and see what happens. So we're here in game 1. We're on the play. No lands, no keep. This hand is really good. Turn 2 Essence Scatter plus a turn 3 Gideon. As long as we find a 3rd land. Blast Zone is a little bit awkward because it doesn't give us access to double blue. But I think with the rest of the hand, we just pretty much need any 3rd land to make it really strong. So just going to keep that. Opponent playing a turn 1 Liner Elf. Lines up pretty poorly versus our Blast Zone, which hopefully can take care of it at some point. We can Essence Scatter whatever creature they play here. They're not making any plays. Not exactly certain what that says about their hand. Probably means it's very clunky. Has some 4-drops in it. Not sure what those 4-drops are though. I'm just gonna play Gideon. I'm just gonna get a threat on the table. So my other option is I could Prison Realm this, which would probably set them back another turn. But I think just getting Gideon in play and just starting to attack is very good. So I'm just gonna start doing that. Opponent using an Assassin's Trophy on that is very good for us. They're just super far behind on mana now. If we draw like a Teferi or something like that, we're going to be super far ahead. So I could go ahead and cash in this Blast Zone to get rid of the Slender Elves. I think I'm going to wait though. I don't really see a big need to do that. We could Prison Realm this, but I kind of expect this game to go on longer. The longer the game goes, the worse the Slender Elf gets, and the better this Prison Realm gets, just answering something else. I think my hand has enough answers where perhaps killing this isn't really that bad. Kind of on the edge about it, but I think I'm just gonna say go here. Just like a good use of Dovin's Veto, I'm just gonna go ahead and counter this. Teferi is a little bit awkward. Was hoping to try that last turn so we could have kept up some protection, but now we don't really have that choice. We just have to hope he doesn't have like another Contempt or another Assassin's Trophy. Wild Growth Walker. I'm gonna let this resolve. I'd rather counter like the Jade Light Ranger or the Merfolk Branch Walker. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. My little Liner Elf, it's not really a problem. We can just go ahead and pop this Blast Zone, which I think I'm going to go ahead and do, especially since the opponent is missing some land drops here. So now we get to just say go. We can Gideon's Triumph, the Wild Growth Walker if necessary. We have a lot of answers here. I feel pretty confident about this game. So I could just cash in this Settle the Wreckage for a single threat, but don't really want to do that. I'd rather save it for later on in the game. Turning on Hydroid Krasis with Settle the Wreckage is not optimal, but I honestly don't really see the game going on that long, so not really worried about that. I think I just want to try and protect this Teferi and try and get the ultimate off, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use this Gideon's Triumph here, and then save the Settle the Wreckage if he like double spells this turn. So he didn't do anything. It's definitely a sign of weakness to me. His hand is probably just like some removal spells. He might have a Hydroid Krasis in his hand. That would make some sense. But Hydroid Krasis is not really a big deal here. So Jade Light Ranger, I'm going to let this resolve and then use a Prison Realm on it. I'd rather counter like an impactful spell like Vraska's Contempt or something like that. I just want to get this Teferi ultimating. So we can go ahead and use this Prison Realm here. We can get this Jadelight Ranger off of the table. I don't really think I need to search for this Kanto. I'm just going to look for Camishes inside and other cards that line up well with this Teferi Ultimate. Just untap 2 lands here, pass turn to the opponent. Yep, so it looks like the opponent just didn't have an answer for it to Teferi, so he just ended up dying. The Blast Zone was pretty good that game, taking out both the elves. So how do we want to board in this matchup? I'm not quite sure. I think this matchup is pretty solid for us overall. I don't think the Teferi Time Rattlers are very good. They don't really do much. Bouncing a spell isn't exactly what you want to be doing. The Dovin Vetoes can be pretty nice for countering Planeswalkers, so I might want to board those in. The Narset Parter Veils, not really that good in this matchup. Doesn't really do a whole lot. Disdainful Stroke could be pretty solid just for interacting with my opponents like Lilianas and Planeswalkers, but I'm not really sure it does much else besides that, so I'm kind of on the fence about it. I'm not quite sure it's worth boarding in. Depends on how many bad cards we have in our deck. Don't think we need Lyra. We already have like the Gideons. Well, Lyra might be better than Gideon in this matchup. Lines up pretty poor versus Vivian Reed, so I think overall I'm not going to be boarding it in. I don't think the Wanderer is very good. Could answer like a big Jadelight Ranger, a Croesus, but we already have plenty of removal for those. It's not like the Grixis deck where we want to be killing like their Niv Mizzet or their Nicol Bolas or like Rekindling Phoenix. Opponent doesn't have any of those cards in their deck. Don't think Invoke the Divine really does much. So the History Benalias are pretty interesting. Usually from the opponent's side, I'm going to be boarding out my Wild Girthwalkers in this matchup. So History Benalia could do a really good job of just clogging up the board during the early game and providing a fast threat. So I think I like it more than Gideon Blackblade in this matchup. So I think I'm going to board out Gideon. I'm going to board out Narset. Probably going to board out... So like the enchantment removal gets a little bit worse in this matchup post-board. Because my opponent will be bringing in answers for it, so it definitely gets worse. So I want to be boarding in these 4 cards for sure, I think. Perhaps we just want to do this. I think I'm going to shave a Prison Realm for Dovin's Veto. I think we're just going to sideboard like this. I don't really think we really need any of the other stuff, and I think the histories line up better than the Gideon postboard. The stand is pretty awkward. Opponent mulligans, so we're not going to feel bad about mulling to 6 here. The stand's alright. Definitely want to keep that Essence Scatter on top to counter an impactful creature. So a neat trick with this deck is that Gideon's Triumph says target opponent sacrifices a creature that attacked or blocked this turn. Meaning that if your opponent gets to combat and attacks you, if you think they're probably trying to bait out a spell of some sort, like bait out your removal. Crisis for 2. Not quite sure I care about that here. Probably just gonna let that resolve. So if you think your opponent is trying to just bait out your removal, you can just take the damage, hold up your counter spell, and then at the end of their turn, you can use the Gideon's Triumph to edict them, because it says attacked or blocked this turn. It doesn't have to be attacking, which I think is a pretty neat play. So we have to hope the opponent doesn't have a Planeswalker here. We're going to have a hard time dealing with that. Hopefully you get to catch like a Jadelight Ranger with this Essence Scatter. Yeah. If the opponent doesn't play a land here, I'm probably going to cash in this Blast Zone for a Lantern Elf, but he did. So we have a few options here. We could play Camersh's Inside the Stern. We could play History Benalia, which could be pretty solid. So it depends on what I think they have in their hand. I think their hand is most likely a Krasis at the moment. They're just trying to get up to 6 mana. I think it's likely if they had a Vivian or something like that, they would have played it last turn. So I think what I have to do now is that just try and be as mana efficient as possible and play into drawing a board wipe to deal with my opponent's board. So I'm just going to cast the Camersh's Inside this turn and try and make him think out like a counterspell or something like that. So usually on these turns, versus like the blue light control deck, you typically want to be playing like an impactful spell that the opponent is forced to answer, so their Camersh's Insights don't line up very well. The Lantern Elf is whatever. So opponent doesn't have a Krasis in hand. I wouldn't think anyways. I think their hand is probably a combination of counter magic and or removal spells. I think I just want to cash in this Cleansing Nova, just get what my opponent has off the board right now. Opponent might use like a counter spell on this, perhaps a negate. So opponent did have the Vivian read. I would imagine they probably drew this off the top. If I were them, I probably would have played it the previous turn, but it chose not to. The Sinister Sabotage is a very good draw. The history is hopefully going to allow us to beat down on this Vivian before it runs away with the game too much. They're going to be able to get a few cards off of it, which is really bad for us. Man, really tempted to counter that Branch Walker, but I don't think we can. Opponent getting very lucky here. They typically want to be taking up Vivian Reed if they want to before they play Branch Walker, but he chose to down tick on my History of Benalia. I suppose that makes sense. Teferi was a good draw here, so we have a few options. We could so we could play Teferi here. We could try and tuck this Vivian Reed. If the opponent has like a negate or something like that, it's very bad for us, but I think every turn he just has this Vivian in play. It's just getting worse and worse for us. So I just want to get this Vivian off the table. I did make a slight sequencing error here. I should have attacked with this Knight token before I played the Teferi. But ultimately it looks like it doesn't really matter, so it's not really that big of a deal. It was a mistake though. You try and once not make those as a Magic player. Like all those tiny mistakes and edges you're giving up always come back to matter. Well, not always, but it's usually pretty important to try and avoid making those mistakes if possible. This is pretty bad for us. Liliana is really good. Gonna cash in this Camersh's Insight here, just trying to find an answer to this Liliana, hopefully. Not exactly what we wanted. Looks like we just ended up not fighting an answer to this Liliana. So we're probably just going to get run over. If I was the opponent, I'd probably just down tick here. Just get rid of both the boards and draw 2 cards. Can't really afford to trade off here. We should force him to down tick the Liliana so he doesn't get a free 1-1. Or a 2-2 rather, my bad. Opponent drawing the Vivian there was very, very bad for us. Probably can't really win this game now. Opponent just has too many Planeswalkers in play. We'd have to draw something very, very good here. Like, whew, that was not it, Chief. So we probably just have to play Island and take this Blast Zone up to 5 and then get that Vivian off the table next turn and hopefully draw an answer to the Liliana. Pretty far behind here. Gonna be pretty tough to win this game. Looks like the opponent is getting punished for choosing to use a Merfolk Branchwalker before their Vivian, which you don't really want to do because you always want to make sure the card that you surveil, you either want to be able to leave it on top or leave it on, or like put it in the graveyard. Using the Branchwalker like the opponent is doing is taking away a lot of the power of that card, because if you do want the card, which the opponent most likely wanted the duress, you can't really get it now without taking the Vivian down or not even using it at all. So it was a slight sequencing error from our opponent there. Yeah, I just think we're super far behind now, and we can't win anymore, so I'm just going to concede to save time. That game was pretty brutal. I think we don't really want to change much about how we sideboarded. Could see boarding in a Disdainful Stroke. So I'm going to try and go a little bit bigger here. We're going to board out 2 Gideon Triumph for 2 of these. The Dovin's Veto and the Stroke. We've been mulliganing a lot this game. Kind of unfortunate. Opponent is very skilled at having the Eternal and Llanowar Elf. It's a very powerful strategy. Yeah. Just didn't draw the white source this game. I think we've definitely gotten pretty unlucky this match. But it happens. No third land is brutal, especially not drawing any white lands. It's pretty unlucky. I think I just have to counter this. I can't let him get too much pressure, or else we'll never be able to win. So now we have to hold up the Sinister Sabotage. Problem is, the opponent doesn't really have to play any impactful spells here. You can just play like a Jadelight Ranger, like a Merfolk Branchwalker. We don't really have a choice but to counter it. We can't really let those cards resolve, especially when we're so far behind, I don't think. Hopefully the opponent's missing land drops here. I think that's the only way we can win. Oh, opponent has the land as well. Man. Hopefully opponent just taps out here for a Planeswalker of some kind. We get to Dovin's Veto it. Really needed to draw a white source there to deploy this History of Benalia. Krasis is pretty unbeatable. Which looks like it's what he has. I'm just gonna concede to that. We're just dead here. Can't really draw anything to get out of this. So I'm back for game 2, or round 2, my bad. So we're on the play this game. Our hand is pretty good. We have a cheap removal spell, plus a Sinister Sabotage, a Settle the Wreckage, and a Teferi, which is pretty much everything we could ask for in a hand. So I'm gonna keep this hand. So it looks like the opponent might be playing mono blue. I think that's a pretty good matchup for us due to cards like Gideon's Triumph and Blast Zone. I'm just gonna go ahead and counter that. That way they can't play like a Curious Obsession plus a counter spell. That'd be pretty bad for us, and I just wanna avoid that at all cost. So now we can play around the Spell Pierce by casting the Gideon's Triumph. I think I have to Essence Scatter that, because it does kind of make Gideon's Triumph. So I don't think we can really play around the Spell Pierce now. If he has it, we're in a bad spot, but if he managed to just like dive down, we're off to a pretty good start, so let's see what happens. This is pretty much gonna, I think, be the apex of the game, whether or not we lose or we win. So it looks like he did not have it, which is really good for us. That was pretty surprising. I really thought he had something like that, but luckily enough he didn't, so Just gonna go ahead and cash in this Settle the Wreckage. Don't think it's gonna get much better than this in a matchup like this. If he has a counterspell, might bait him into countering this. That way we can tap out next turn, maybe deploy like a Teferi or like the Ugin to destroy his creature. We have a lot of options next turn. So it looks like opponent didn't have anything. So I think there are two important things to note here. I think it's likely the opponent has a counterspell. So going off that, we have to judge which one of these cards is worse than the other. So I think Ugin overall is going to be better than this Teferi. So I'm going to play the Teferi as a bait for his counter magic because Ugin can kill a creature that he plays. It also just starts making bodies to get this game over with. And also if this does somehow resolve, it's going to be pretty hard for him to beat either way. Which it did, which I'm very surprised about, so... I'm not quite sure what's in my opponent's hand. Another Merfolk Trickster. I wonder what else. So he has a few ways of getting back into this game. If he has like a Curious Obsession here, it might be bad for us. Curious Obsession, a dive down. Opponent just drew a bunch of lands. So I think cards like Teferi, Time Rattler, Dovin's Veto, Narset, and Lyra, maybe even the Wonder, can all be pretty good in this matchup. So I don't think Gideon is very good here because opponent is a creature that can put a lot of pressure on our Gideon. I think the Ugin might be a little bit too clunky. Besides that, let's kind of see what happens here. Not certain if we do want the Wonder. It's kind of like a lot of mana, can be kind of a clunky removal spell. But if we can manage their smaller creatures, I think it will be very good at answering the Tempest Gen and such, but I'm not really quite certain that we really do need it there. I think Settle the Wreckage might be pretty poor in this matchup because opponent does have the Siren Storm Tamer, which can counter it. But I'm not sure how much that really matters, as all of your removal gets beaten by it. Well, the Narset does stop them from drawing extra cards. It is just like a 3-mana Planeswalker that I'm not really certain how much we can protect. So it might not be good enough for this matchup. I think I'm just going to sideboard like this. I'll leave in one copy of the... Well, we could shave a Teferi. Yeah, I think a single Narset might be better than one of the Teferi Hero of Dominaries. 5 mana is a lot in this matchup. So this hand is a little bit slow, but it does have the Blast Zone, a pile of board wipes, and the Lyra. So I think I'm gonna keep it. That Gideon's Triumph is a very good draw. His opponent not making any plays at all. It's very surprising. I'm not quite sure what he has in, or what they have in hand. Just gonna go ahead and deploy this to Fairy, see what's up. I'm gonna go ahead and Spell Pierce that. It's pretty good for us. I'd rather them Spell Pierce this than like a board wipe of some kind. Could be worse. The Curious Obsession here is pretty strong, so I'm just gonna go ahead and blast them this away so they can't really interact with it at all. Ideally they play another 1-drop here, which they chose not to. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna play Blast Zone here and pop it on their turn. It does put us behind on mana, but opponent missed a land drop as well. I'm surprised opponent didn't fire off that opt on their turn, so they must have a 2-mana counterspell of some kind. Most likely negate. This is really just showcasing how powerful Blast Zone is in this matchup. Opponent can't really interact with it at all, so just previously the blue-white deck had a hard time dealing with that, but because the opponent does have like dive down and stuff, it was pretty rough, but with Blast Zone there's just nothing they can do about it. Might be correct to start playing something like Sorcerer's Spyglass in the mono blue deck to deal with Blast Zone, but I'm not certain. I am no mono blue expert. So I think I'm going to Sinister Sabotage here. I think this is something they'll probably fight over if they have Counterspell, which I think they do. So hopefully we can bait out a Counterspell here and then play the Cleansing Nova, or maybe deploy the Lyra. We have a lot of good draws here. If opponent has another Spell Pierce, that could be bad for us. Yeah, so it looks like we didn't quite get there. So I'm just gonna say go here. We're gonna try and Gideon Triumph the Science Storm Tainer and then hold up Essence Scatter for a creature of some kind. I do want to note, I do think the opponent has a negate, which I'm kind of confused about, because the turn they played Terramander, they had 2 mana. And then they chose to leave up that 2 mana and cast the opt at the end of my turn. Although Terramander isn't a wizard, so it means they weren't holding up the wizard's retort, which means they probably have a negate in their hand. Or they have double Spell Pierce. They might just have a single Spell Pierce left. Not certain. There's a lot of options here, but I am confident opponent has another piece of interaction. Probably a few. He's not really doing much here. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but it's pretty unfortunate for us. Just gotta try and settle the wreckage. Just gotta try and get this Storm Tamer off the table. Yep, opponent had his second spell pierce as I thought, but I can't really play around it, so I'm not going to respect it. I think opponent is probably pretty close to running out of interaction at this point. They've played a lot of it. So I'm going to go ahead and play the Lyra here, mostly because I already played 2 Wizard's Retort. So I think it's unlikely that they have something else that can counter this Lyra. They could have a Trickster here, but it only stops the Lyra for a single turn unless they have multiples. Pteramander isn't really that big of a deal. So we do take 5 down to 7. If they do have another Trickster, it can be pretty bad for us. But we do have the Essence Scatter for it, hopefully. So I'm not that worried about it. So opponent appears to have a dive down here, which is very, very bad for us. Like, I'm very tempted to just take 6 damage here and go down to 1. But I think we're in a pretty bad spot if we do that, so I'm just gonna go ahead and block the Pteramander and just try and I don't know, maybe spike a counterspell or something like that off this Chemistry's Insight. This Lyra will be pretty essential to winning this game though. So I guess we could block with Lyra here. They use the dive down, cast Chemistry's Insight, hopefully draw a land, and then try and board wipe them with this Cleansing Nova. I think that's probably how we win this game. Yep, opponent had the dive down as expected, so I'm just going to go ahead and respond with this Chemistry's Insight. Just gotta hope opponent has no counter magic. Wow. I resolved. That was very good for us. The opponent's pretty much out of gas. Just gonna go ahead and fire off the Essence Scatter here. If he has a Spell Pierce, it's really bad for us, but he's already played multiple, so I'm not really too worried about it. So it might be correct to be boarding out Filter in this matchup, but sometimes they play cards like Searcher's Canta in their sideboard. Plus, I do think just hitting line drops is really strong versus the Spell Pierce deck. In this kind of matchup, you just want to try and be double spelling as often as we can. So just having lands in your deck is important, regardless of what kind of mana they tap for. Yep. I think this matchup is pretty solid overall. Blast Zone did a lot of work that match. I was very impressed with it. On to the next one. So we're here for our third match. My opening hand looks pretty solid. We have early interaction, the Sinister Sabotage, and some lands that are very good in matchups like Mono White or Mono Blue or the creature decks. So we're going to keep. So it looks like opponent is probably playing mono red, leading on mountain. Not many other decks do that. I think your deck probably boasts a pretty solid red matchup. Oh, they're playing big red. Not sure how good this matchup is, but I think it's a lot closer than regular variants of red. I expect cards like the Wonder and Narset to be very impactful in this matchup. Let's see how it pans out. Not sure we have a great answer to this treasure map game 1. Probably have to save a filter rune for it. Does look like opponent is missing land drops though, which is pretty good for us. So I want to save this filter rune. I don't think I want to use it on the blast zone. I think I want to use it on this treasure map once it flips, just to stop him from drawing cards. I think if he scries to the top, I'm also going to filter in here. So let's see what he does with this. So he did keep on top. So I think I am going to go ahead and fire off this filter and just try and keep him off lands. That's kind of funny. So it looks like opponent did manage to draw the land off of that, which kind of blows for us. And giving him the mountain allowed him to cast a chain earlier. It's kind of unlucky, but I think it was the correct play. So on this turn, we're going to have a few options. We can play the Blast Zone. We can just play Plains. So I think playing the Blast Zone will probably make the opponent go ahead and activate that treasure map. So we just pressure him into doing that instead of playing like another 3-drop or something like that. We also just get to fire off this Kamish's Insight, which we really need to do. We need to find impactful cards like board wipes in this matchup. The opponent does have a lot of cards that we have to deal with, so just sitting here is pretty bad for us. Have to try and find like a Gideon or a Teferi or something like that. Opponent sure is taking a long time here. Looks like he chose not to use that treasure map. Might just go ahead and put a counter on this Blast Zone. Try and punish him for not doing that and get it off the treasure map off the table here. So it looks like opponent probably has a good 4-drop in hand, which is why they chose to go ahead and do this. Just try and I imagine they were trying to spike the 4th land off the top. So I think here, we just want to be holding up the Sinister Sabotage. I'm just trying to play the Prison Realm. We did discard the wrong land. I should have discarded the plains instead of the island. That was a mistake. But I think the opponent has demonstrated that they probably have a 4-drop they want to play. So I just want to try and Sinister Sabotage whatever card they play here, and then go ahead and catch them by surprise with this Gideon's Triumph. Just need to try and get this pressure off the table. Just try and reach board parity. It's kind of my goal right now. I think I just want to go ahead and fire off this counter spell. If they do play like a Planeswalker, which I kind of expect them to, we have Prison Realm for it. I think I just need to keep this on top. It's just a fast way of winning the game. Yep, opponent played a 4-drop here. We get to just go ahead and Prison Realm it away. Not really a big deal. Hopefully opponent spent a lot of cards, so I think opponent probably made a mistake by casting that Chandra. If you look at it as every treasure is worth a card, opponent just expended like 2 cards to cast that Chandra, which I don't really think was worth it. I think just casting the Chandra and forcing me to, use a counter spell or just being a bit more patient with it will probably reward it more in the long run because of how long these games typically go. So you just kind of have to look at it like that. I'm going to play in the Phoenix. I'm not really very worried about that. Oh, he had the shock. It's kind of unfortunate. So I think my goal is to try and play Deferi next turn, hopefully draw a land, and then try and settle the wreckage. So I just want to use the Sinister Sabotage as an answer to Planeswalkers. I don't really want to answer this Goblin Chain Roller. I just want to try and catch it off guard with Settle the Wreckage. So I'm going to take the line with maximum upside here. I'm going to let this resolve and just try and settle the wreckage, both of them on my turn. That involves ripping a land off the top, but I think we might be lucky enough to do it. So we did manage to draw the land there. I think this is a dead giveaway that we do have Settle the wreckage, especially with the Starfleet Daredevil. Can target my Camouflage Insight. It's just a dead giveaway that we have something going on here. Oh, it does get to target my counterspell, which is pretty bad for me, but we're just gonna have to try and find a way to win this game at 1 life. That's my goal. So we can't beat double burn spell here. It's pretty much just GG. So you have the Prison Realm as an answer choice for Kindling Phoenix. Can use the Teferi to tuck it. I think I let this resolve. I think we might need this other Teferi. Not certain. I think we just gotta try and find more counter magic, so I'm just gonna bottom it. Did a lot of stuff here, Chain Whirler, etc. Don't really think we need that card. It's not really what we're looking for. Chain Whirler kills us. Chandra is pretty difficult to beat. One has a lot of good cards right now. He X out a Mountain, GH to play. So we probably have to cash in this Teferi to tuck the Chandra. Depends what's on top. So we could pay 6 mana. We put the Blast Zone up to 4 counters. Play our land for turn, and we untap with Teferi. Now let's just kill the Chandra. And then we know that he's drawing the Phoenix on his turn. So I think I just have to do that. Don't think I want to play the land here. I want to save it to discard to Camouflage Insight. So if we can survive this turn, I think we might be in a pretty decent spot. I think opponent's last card isn't really relevant. I know he's drawing a Phoenix this turn. Oh, he's a Banefire? Oh, a Fight with Fire. Yeah. You got it, man. I think post-board this matchup gets a lot better. Not exactly for Shrouch's sideboard, to be honest. I think I brought out the Gideon. Probably afford to put out some Triumphs and try and go bigger. Probably just gonna sideboard like this, I think. Ugin is really good in this matchup, but I don't think I can keep it. I think I just try and have to find a blue island, or a card that produces blue mana. I think we've been drawing a lot of no-land hands tonight. It doesn't feel very good. So I think opponent is likely splashing green for like Cinder Vines, which can be pretty nice versus us if he plays it early on. That was a pretty good draw. There's a lot of threes we'd like to counter here. Hopefully this Wonder lines up pretty well. Don't think I really care much about these Direfleet Daredevils. Yep, opponent has Cinder Vines as I expected. I think I might just have to counter that. I don't really have a ton of ways of interacting with it, and my left roll is under a lot of pressure right now. It's not really what I want to be doing, but I think it's what I have to be doing. The Wonder does line up pretty well versus Cinder Vines, so I could just try and Camish those Insight here and try and find like a board wipe. Just get rid of what's on the board. Yeah, I think I'm supposed to do that. Just rely on the Wonder to deal with the Cinder Vines and or find like an answer to it. We are at a pretty high life scroll here, so we do have a lot of room to work with, but it's not infinite life. These games usually go on pretty long, so those Cinder Vines can end up doing a lot of damage. So I think I'm just gonna hope opponent doesn't have a Planeswalker here and just settle the wreckage. Hopefully a tap out for like a Rekindling Phoenix or something like that. We could try and play it a bit slower. I think I just have to settle the wreckage here, to be completely honest. Siege Gang Commander is pretty strong. It's really annoying. Just gonna play a Teferi here. It's gonna soak up a lot of damage and hopefully try and find a board wipe of some kind. I think I'm actually just gonna tuck the Siege Gang Commander. Doesn't feel very good, but opponent has 7 mana. They can attack me for 5, put me down to 9, and they can sacrifice 8 goblins, and that deals 8 damage to me. They can sacrifice 4 goblins, that deals 8, so then I can't really win the game anymore. I can't really cast any more spells because of the Cinder Vines. Opponent only has 1 card left though, so they are pretty close to running out of gas. This is kind of what I just have to hope for here. Treasure map is whatever, we can beat that. So let's recast the Goblin General next turn, or the Siege Gang Commander. I imagine they probably bottom it. Yep, they bottomed. Yeah, so it's gonna MTGO here. I think I just want to catch this Gideon's Triumph in for a Goblin. Just gotta try and answer these things. Interesting. So I think I just have to play the Wonder here. Just trying to relieve some of the pressure from the Cinder Vines and these Goblins. And then on my turn, we get to filter in the treasure map before he can draw some cards off the treasures, which is important. Hopefully he doesn't draw anything too insane here. Something that can get countered by my Disdainful Stroke. It's kind of what we're hoping for. I'm just going to use this Gideon's Triumph and get rid of a 1-1. This is awkward. I think I just have to shock here and filter in. Doesn't feel great, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So I was hoping to try and draw a removal spell for the Chain Ruler there. I think this Wonder is going to be really impactful, and I think it's pretty essential to us winning this game, which is why I was trying to find an answer of some sort to protect it. But we didn't get there, so probably going to be losing in this game unless we draw something pretty exceptional off the top like a Lyra. So, opponent just answering this Wonder here. Yeah, it's going to be pretty rough to win. Man, I'm just trying to think of ways to get out of this, and I'm not quite sure. Have to draw Lyra here, I think. It's not Lyra, so I think we have to settle the wreckage. Just try and... Oh man, I don't know. I game one, it was pretty annoying to lose. Really close to winning that one. Yeah, I just gotta let this resolve. We can go down to 3 life and counter it. If we go down to 3 though, we can like cast one more spell before we die. I think I'm just gonna let this resolve and just rely on top decking Lyra. I think that's my out. Then we want to use this Disdainful Stroke to try and protect the Lyra. So we could use Invokes Divine to try and gain some life, but if opponent's smart, you can just sacrifice it to its own ability, which prevents us from gaining the life. But I'm gonna go ahead and put him to the test and see if he's smart enough to figure that out. Which, really hope they aren't. Opponent saw the line, so I guess we're dead. This matchup, though, not great. I think game 1 we were pretty close to winning. Maybe wanna... This thing drawing Lyra is super important in this matchup, which is something we didn't do. Just don't really think we really had any pressure. We just really had nothing going on that game. We just sort of sat there spinning our wheels and didn't really see anything going on in the top 24 cards. We just let opponent had infinite time, and then when they had infinite time, they just like snowballed off the Cinder Vines and just like, I don't even think our opponent drew very well that game. Opponent just played his Cinder Vines, and we just took some chip damage from creatures. They played a single Siege Gang Commander, and that just dealt so much damage to us, we just couldn't really do much about it. So I think looking back on this game, maybe we messed up by settle the wreckaging both the Direfleet Daredevils. Maybe we're just switch to Gideon Triumphs there. Gideon's Triumph at the end of their turn and just leave up a counter spell, which looking back might have been correct. Just allowed opponent to resolve a spell which we couldn't really answer, and then just ran away with the game. I think that was probably the point in which we messed this game up. But overall, tough matchup. You know how to be better versus in the future, and I don't really expect it to be that common. We won the die roll yet again. We're playing against VTCLA. He's a pretty popular Moto grinder. I think he's playing Grixis last time I played him. This hand's pretty good. Has like a turn 3 Gideon. Has a removal spell. Gonna keep. Hand's not like insane or anything, but turn 3 Gideon on the play is pretty powerful versus what I hope to be Grixis. If he does have the thought erasure on turn 2, it's pretty poor for me. Just getting rid of my Gideon, but I think this matchup is pretty solid overall. Opponent really taking his time to choose whether or not to mulligan. So he's playing a different deck now. Looks like we might be playing against Nexus potentially. Maybe Sultai. There's a lot of options here. So Looks like he's playing some Sultai variant. So I think we're going to go ahead and play the Gideon here, and hopefully try and blow him out with the Gideon's Triumph next turn. Playing a Hedon's Climb deck. It's pretty interesting. I really enjoy these style of decks personally. I think they're pretty solid. Gideon's been pretty impressive this game, just been mowing our opponent down. That's interesting. He's playing in mass with Hedon's Climb. It's something I haven't really seen before. So this is a pretty interesting take on the deck by the opponent. Making that a 2-5 is pretty annoying. This is a really good draw by our opponent. It's pretty bad for us. Not really sure what to do here. We could just play Gideon. We can talk his Kite Self Rebooter. I kind of want to take that line. It's a little bit greedy, but I think it might be correct. I think we just gotta hope he doesn't have another Kite Self Rebooter. That'd be really bad for us. think I just have to fire this off. It's going to be pretty important to keep this land in play. Want to try and get rid of whatever he plays. So we have some plays here. We have a lot of options. Not quite sure what's the best play. I think we gotta tick up to Fairy first, see what that yields. That was very good. Yeah, that was a really lucky draw by us. It's easily the best draw in our deck. I think we probably want to board something like this. I'm not sure history Benalias are very good. An opponent is playing a Hedonist Climb. Probably just gonna board like this, I think. Santa's a little bit slow. I think I gotta keep it though. Can't really mulligan a hand that has like lands and spells like this. It's a pretty powerful combination. Probably the best in Magic. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and Prison Realm this way. Playing Gideon this turn probably wouldn't be awful either. The problem is we play Gideon. He attacks with Thrashing Brontodon. He plays a creature, we Prism Realm the Brontodon, and then he gets to killer Gideon with whatever creature he plays. So I think we're supposed to be a bit more patient with the Gideon. Maybe this turn is fine. If he plays like a Planeswalker or something next turn, lines up pretty well. Probably not going to get a better opportunity to play Gideon. So I'm probably just going to go ahead and do it now. So we gotta hope he doesn't have like a trophy or something like that here. That's pretty bad for us. So next thing we gotta hope for is that we play this to Fairy and that we get to counter something important with the Sinister Sabotage off of it. Gotta hope he just doesn't really do anything here, which is very unlikely. Opponent has a stroke. It's kind of annoying. Probably has like a 6-drop in hand, like a Krasis or a Liliana or something like that. Now this is a duress off the top. I think that's what it is. I think he probably would have cast it earlier if he had it. It's kind of unfortunate. This means he probably doesn't have a 6-drop in his hand, which is some good news at the least. I think I just want to go ahead and try and settle the wreckage away the Brontodon instead of using Prison Realm. The reason why I want to do this is I want to save the Prison Realm for something a bit more impactful, like a Planeswalker of some kind. That way if he has like another Artifact Destruction spell or Enchantment Destruction spell, I don't get blown out by it, and it lets him kill my Gideon. Have to just try and counter this booter. I think I probably graveyard that. Wow, that find is brutal. This lets him kill my Gideon. Yeah, so we did get a little bit punished by trying to use to settle the wreckage, which is kind of unfortunate. Just gets to kill my Gideon. But at this point, I think we've worked ourselves into a pretty solid spot overall. He's pretty much out of cards, so this Lyra might be able to just get the job done. We're both in top deck mode, except I have a Lyra and a Prison Realm compared to his Brontodon and Kitesail Freebooter. He's only at 12 life, so I should be able to put a lot of pressure in here and hopefully get the job done. I'm just gonna fire off an Essence Scatter here. I just don't want him to be able to interact like well with my Prison Realm. I think I just say go here. He has a lot of outs here. He has a few. Doesn't look like he drew him though. He's just hoping to jump with his Kitesail. So he should be able to play Teferi, down tick, and get this game over with. Yeah, I just drew another land. Gonna play the Ugin for style points. Yeah, I definitely think we drew a lot better than they did that game. They didn't really draw many spells. They drew 7, and we drew 7 lands, and they drew 3 more lands than we did. The deck also has like Canisters, Insight, and stuff like that. So we do see more cards unless they draw like a crisis or something like that, but they just don't really draw any of their important payoff. I think that's really what cost them this game. Alright, well, on to the last one. Hopefully gonna get that through too. Let's see what happens. So we're back here with match number 5. This opening hand looks pretty solid. We have the Gideon plus the Gideon's Triumph and the Settle the Wreckage. Can be a little bit slow though, but shouldn't be a problem. So the thought erasure, it's not great for us. Probably just take our Gideon. But I think this is a pretty good matchup overall. So I'm not that worried about it. We have a lot of good draws. Sabotage was a pretty solid draw. I think I just have to fire off the Sinister Sabotage here. This card can do a lot of nasty things with the mechanic of Surveil. The games usually go pretty long, so I have to think ahead. Don't think I really want Filter in here. So Sabotage was very good. It's one of the best draws in our deck. Just get to disrupt whatever he does here now. I think I'm just going to go ahead and counter this. I don't want him to take like my Ugin. He's probably going to be pretty likely to take the counter spell regardless. Since I value the Ugin more than the Sinister Sabotage, I just want to go ahead and counter this. So it looks like we could have a pretty good Ugin turn here. If he plays like a Bolus or something like that. Oh yeah, this Ugin's gonna be nice. I think I just exile this Settle the Wreckage. So this is kind of annoying if they have another Nicol Bolas here. This deck usually doesn't play too many copies of that card. But if we get shut and tap with this Ugin, hold up the Veto, the Triumph, we're in a pretty good spot. So I think I want to preemptively take this Blast Zone up. Usually they're cards that I care about hover around like 3 to 4 mana. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it up to 3. Well, I'm going to put it up to 4 in case he draws like a Nicol Bolas. So we really need to draw some way to really break the stall, like a Teferi or something like that. Opponent can't really resolve any meaningful spells because we have the Dovin's Veto and the Essence Scatter. We have a lot of good draws right now. We have Kamish's Insight, we have Teferi, we have Gideon. We just need some sort of pressure. Playing Drago isn't really what I want to be doing. We are drawing more spells than they are, so that's pretty nice. Man, I was really hoping we would draw something by now, but I guess I can't really complain that much. We're in a pretty good spot. We have answers for everything. No, the counterspell isn't terrible. Just gonna discard the Settle. I think it's the worst card. It should be drawn like anything but spells. We want spells that we either cast here or tap for mana. We just want lands or something like that. I think I'm just going to go ahead and fire off this Dovin's Veto. I don't really want them getting a peek at my hand. I'm probably going to take the Dovin's Veto or the Sinister Sabotage anyways. We just want to counter that. Like anything that gets rid of our threat, we just need to get rid of. Just need to get this threat rolling and get this game over. I think I just want to top that. It's like a solid draw too. Can flash it back, but that requires us discarding a card. So just playing it and flashing it back just lets us see the maximum number of cards, which we just want to do. I think that's the better play than just putting it in our graveyard. Man, I love me a good mid-range grind fest, but this is kind of boring. Just nothing going on. Kind of sucks, to be honest. I'm gonna go ahead and fire this off now. That way, if we draw like a land, we can play it. Another Gideon's pretty decent. I think I just want to save this land to, well, so I wanted to save something to cycle to this Chemistry's Insight, but I think this Gideon Triumph is pretty dead, so I'm just gonna cycle that. Pretty surprised opponent used a Moment of Craving there without having a second one. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Yeah, the Devil's fine now that we've drawn a second Gideon. I'm not really that worried about it. We have an answer to their Nickel Bolus and such, so yep. I'm just gonna fire off an Essence Scatter here. I'm just gonna go ahead and cast this now. Then on my turn, I'm gonna go ahead and pop this Blast Zone to answer it. So thanks to these Chemistry's Insight, we're pretty far ahead on cards now. Opponent's 2 for 1 just a bunch this game, but it just doesn't really matter. This Nicol Bolas is pretty annoying. Gets to kill our Gideon. If he ticks up, we're probably just gonna exile one of our lands, but it's not really that big of a deal. Oh, if he does kill a Gideon, so we have to win with just Teferi locking my opponent, which will probably take a while. So if we do draw another Gideon, I'm gonna play pretty safe with it, just so we don't have to grind through all of that. So I'm gonna fire this off first so we can scry with it, and then cast the Chemistry's Insight and see what we draw. So this is pretty awkward. We're back to the spot we were at a few turns ago, where we're both just sort of sitting here with nothing going on. Is this like a Dispersal? It's a Dream Eater. Did not expect opponent to be playing that one. It looks pretty good here though. It's gonna be able to bounce my Prism. You just draw another card off Bolus. So it looks like that might be swinging the game in favor of him. Mostly because I've just sort of been just drawing blanks. I have 4 Teferis left in my deck, just not really drawing anything. Yeah, this is what I was afraid would happen. We just like didn't really draw anything, so we couldn't put any pressure on the opponent. Now they're starting to like get ahead. It's bad news bears, that's for sure. Pretty far behind now. Opponent knows what our hand is, so it doesn't really matter if we do it now. So this is pretty good. Might give us a way of winning this game. Might be able just to run opponent out of threats. Looking at their graveyard, they've played quite a few. So it looks like they've already played 3 Nicol Bolas. They've played 2 Bolas, the Dragon, and then 2 of the Planeswalker. So they probably only have Nicol Bolas, the Ravager left in their deck. I think they usually don't play many Nicol Bolas of the 5-drop variety. They usually only play 2 copies of that card. So I'm not that worried about this game anymore. Super grindy though, that's for sure. Another Dream Eater. That's annoying. People don't usually play that card. We do have the board wipe on top though. Opponent's probably just gonna bounce. Yeah, you can just bounce like our I wonder what he's gonna bounce. He has a few options. He gets to make us discard whatever we draw though, or whatever he bounces with the disinformation campaign, which is pretty annoying. I'm not sure I would do that if I were him. I think I would have bounced to search for this Canta, but it's gonna go ahead and exile this Prison Realm because he has the disinformation campaigns in his hand. So it's gonna get exiled no matter what. Man, that's brutal. To be completely honest, could care less about that search for this Canta. It doesn't really do a whole lot. This is super awkward, but we just have to get this Nicol Bolas off the table. If it flips, he can just bring back his Nicol Bolas Planeswalker in his graveyard. Game's just not been going our way. The fairies, not quite here soon enough. just gonna concede here to save time. Don't really think we can win this game anymore. Yeah, unfortunately, we just drew pretty blank there. We didn't really draw anything during the early turns of that game. Or like whenever we were both just playing draw go, just drew a whole lot of nothing, so I died. Post board, this matchup improves a lot though. I still think it's really good game 1 regardless. I think I like sideboarding like this. I think this is how we board. I find it so weird when people just fire off a turn 1 duress in these mid-range grind fests. I find it often to be correct, or incorrect in my opinion. Not a fan of doing this at all. You can't really like view these kind of games as like one turn after the other. You have to look at like 5 or 6 turns down the line and how impactful that card is going to be. Which I think it's going to be a lot more impactful later than it is now. This history was a pretty good draw. Should let us just kill him pretty fast here. Defus Sandy is his best play. Which looks like he just has a Transformation campaign, which we don't really care about. I think the Ugin's pretty slow there. I just wanted to make sure I have the 4th land and the stroke in my hand, so we had to discard the Ugin there. Feels pretty awkward, but I think it's the correct play overall. So the reason I shock there instead of playing the plains is I want to guarantee that I have access to double blue, or that next turn I can go Chemistry's Insight plus play an island and then have double blue after that. We're in a pretty awkward spot here. We just have to keep on putting pressure on though. So I think opponents just getting so much value from these disinformation campaigns. We just have to be trying to go for lethal here and just putting as much pressure as possible on our opponent. I don't think we're gonna win being grindy in this game, so that's what my goal isn't to be. My goal is just to get my opponent dead between this turn and the next turn. Man, it kind of sucks that he's drawn triple bedevil, but it is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and shock here. The reason because he's probably going to disinformation campaign, get rid of my Gideon's Triumph. But if I play the shock lane here, that lets me blast zone and put it up to 3 counters on my turn. Yeah, just... Gonna put blast zone up to 4 the next I'll land. I'm just gonna exile the Gideon's Triumph from my hand. It's not really doing a whole lot. I think I just have to try and get that bolus off the battlefield and just try and rip something on my turn. Bolus is just gonna let him kill my knight, and then just snowballs and snowballs, and we've already gotten to the point where we're super far behind. So he has the bolus on top of his library after this draw. Hopefully this is just like a bolus. Man, these dispersals have been brutal. It's like super awkward because I don't really want to keep cards in my hand because of disinformation campaign, and I just end up getting blown out by the dispersals. just gonna put a counter on that to destroy the bolus, and then put another counter on my blast zone. Yeah, the disinformation campaign builds of this deck seem pretty hard to beat. I think opponent ran a little bit hot there, drawing both the triple bedevil. I think we got pretty unlucky to lose game 1, but I do think this matchup is pretty solid overall. Don't really think I can win anymore. Probably just gonna concede. So I don't really see a series of draws that could get us out of this. I tap out opponent, you win. So matchup felt pretty awkward, but I do think it's good. I think the opponent did draw pretty well that game. I think he drew a hand that was pretty good against mine, you know, with like the dispersal my thing, like the triple bedevil was pretty awkward. The double nickel bolus kind of sucked, but I think we usually win this matchup. Overall, I still think the deck's good, but I think I ran a little bit cold this league.